It is the war on our own shadow government here in the United States. You want to drain the swamp? Here's how we're actually going to get the job done. I'll fire 75% of the federal bureaucrats by the end of my first term. We'll get half of that done in the first month. That's how you drain the swamp. Shut down government agencies. That's how we get this done. The FBI, the ATF, the CDC, the U.S. Department of Education. We're not just messing around the edges, reforming them anymore. We're going to get in there and actually shut them down. That's how you revive the integrity of our constitutional republic. Don't start with last year's budget as the baseline, which is based on the prior year's budget before that, which is based on the prior year's budget before that, all of which is corrupt and broken. Start with 0 as the baseline and ask what's actually necessary. 0-based budgeting. That's how you fight the national debt crisis in this country. That's how you shut down that federal bureaucracy. If I can't work for you for more than 8 years, which I think is a good thing, by the way, neither should any of those federal bureaucrats reporting into me either. 8-year term limits for the bureaucracy instead of civil service protections. This is how you drain the swamp. This is what our founding fathers envisioned 250 years ago. That's how we revived the ideals of 1776 in this country. That's what you deserve in your next president. And yes, to get this as lasting change in this country, we do need elections we can trust and believe in. As your next president, I will deliver you minimal federal standards for federal elections. Single-day voting on Election Day as a national holiday with paper ballots, government-issued voter ID to match the voter file, and yes, English as the sole language that appears on a ballot. That's not controversial. That is common sense. Thank you. And we'll get it done. It's not too much to ask. This is not a black idea or a white idea. These aren't even really Democrat ideas or Republican ideas. Not really. These are American ideals that we fought a revolution to secure in this country. And I believe deep in my heart that those ideals still exist. I'm running for president to revive them. It's on the back of our coins. It says, E pluribus unum. It means from many, one. That's what we've lost in this country. We've been taught to celebrate our diversity and our differences so much that we forgot all of the ways that we are really just the same as Americans, bound by that common set of ideals. And here's how we're going to get it back. It's going to be by all of us, not just me, all of us, starting to speak the truth in the open again. Say in public what you will say in private at the dinner table. Say it with a spine. Say it with conviction. Say it with respect. But part of respect is that you respect your neighbor enough to tell him what you actually think. And you see, that's what this campaign is about. Speaking the truth, not just when it's easy, but when it is hard. Speaking the truth, not just to the Democrats on the other side, but to our own side in this Republican Party when necessary too. There's a reason why I'm the only candidate in this race who can tell you certain things. To tell you that I will strip pharmaceutical companies of the special liability exemption for vaccine manufacturers. That's an example of crony capitalism because we need justice in this country where there has been injury. The only person who can tell you that the CO2 pipeline making its way across the other half of this state is wrong and unconstitutional because it's based on a climate change agenda that absolutely, I will say it is a hoax because it has nothing to do with the climate. To tell you that Ronna McDaniel, the failed chairwoman of the RNC, does need to resign after 5 failed years of leadership of our own party, get the heck out of our house. To tell you, today is an important evening on which to do it ahead of tomorrow. Tomorrow's January 6th, 2024. When I get into office in January of 2025, that on day one I will pardon every peaceful January 6th protester on my first day in office, because that's the right thing to do for this country. But I want you to ask yourself, why am I the only candidate who can even tell you these things? It's because our politics is broken. It is corrupt. Every politician anymore is just dancing to the tune of their biggest donor. Every one of them. And it says the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. It's true that every politician has become a pawn. Well, in my case, I'll tell you this. My biggest donor is me. I don't report to them. I report to you, the citizens of this country. Not another one. This country, the United States of America. I'm not somebody else's circus monkey. I'm not going to be somebody's pawn on a chessboard. I would rather speak the truth and lose this election than to win by playing some fake game of political snakes and ladders. And I'm making the bet that, you know what, that is going to be the winning strategy. I think we are going to win the Iowa caucus, actually, deliver a massive surprise on January 15th, because many of you are the first-time supporters in this caucus. I think we're going to get that job done. But that's not up to me. That's up to you. And so if that's what you want, that's what you're going to get with me. But I'll tell you this. That's what we need to revive, a government that tells the truth to its people again. From the truth about what really happened on January 6th, to the truth of how our money's being spent in Ukraine, to the truth about what really happened with the origin of COVID, which we were told for years never began in a lab in China before we knew that it did. We, the people, deserve the truth again. That's what our founding fathers fought for, a government for the people, of the people, by the people. We fought for it in 1776. It's a 1776 moment today. And what our founding fathers would say if they were here right now, Thomas Jefferson to George Washington, if they're in this room, they would tell us that, you know what, you still have another 250 years still left yet to go in this American journey, but it is up to you to step up and seize it just as we did in 1776. That is our moment. And if we do, and if you all do your part, I promise you, my family and I, we will do ours to make sure, not in some fake politician way, but in a true way, make sure that our country's best days are actually still ahead of us. Thank you for coming today, guys. God bless you and your families, and may God bless our United States of America. We're just getting warmed up. I want to open this up and have a free conversation. Do not hold back. Give me the hard ones. Esther was telling you, I'm going to sit across the table from Xi Jinping. I can handle the hard questions from our own voters, and so don't hold back. Let's open this up and have a conversation. We'll start with you, ma'am, and then we'll go right back there. Hey, good to see you.
I've had conversations with people that are talking about Ukraine.
Yes.
This person doesn't support Ukraine. So they think Ukraine loses, Russia takes over, then we're in more trouble. What's your answer?
Sure. So I think this is an important divide in our Republican Party. At the start of this campaign, I was the only candidate with a clear position on this to tell you that I did not support sending another $100 billion to Ukraine. I don't support sending another dime to Ukraine because it's unclear what the next $100 billion is going to do that the first $100 billion didn't already. Now we see how our money is being spent so that some kleptocrat in Ukraine can buy a bigger house. That's where it's gone. They haven't been able to account for it. And people here in the United States of America making money off it, off the top of the list is Hunter Biden. The person got a $5 million bribe from the Ukrainian government-affiliated entity. It's no accident that that's the same country that Joe Biden sent in $200 billion of our taxpayer money to. But the ugly part of this is the Republicans are in on the take. Most of them are. So my answer is this. I'm not asking what comes for what advances the interest of another country. I'm asking what advances the interest of the United States. And right now, the biggest threat we face is the Russia-China military alliance. Those two countries are in a military alliance that together outmatches the United States. Russia's nuclear stockpile is ahead of that of the U.S. Hypersonic missiles travel faster than the speed of sound that can carry nuclear warheads ahead of the United States. China's Navy is arguably bigger than the United States right now, and we depend on China for our modern way of life. Those two countries are in a military alliance with one another. So my secondary issue with the Ukraine war is that we're spending $200 billion of our own money when we're $34 trillion in national debt, and we should be using our own military to actually protect our own borders instead of Ukraine's, which we're failing to do. That's my secondary issue. The main issue I have is that by arming Ukraine to the teeth, we're actually driving Russia further into China's hands, strengthening that Russia-China alliance. So here's what I would do. I would end that war diplomatically with a reasonable deal. I would do it quickly. The terms of the deal are one that Putin would take. We would make a hard commitment that NATO will not admit Ukraine to NATO. And further, we would, yes, have some territorial negotiation where the parts of eastern Ukraine that are occupied, we'd have to reach some reasonable resolution. Keeping in mind, those are Russian-speaking regions. Those are culturally Russian regions. Those are regions that have not participated in Ukrainian elections for the last decade, things you don't hear from the mainstream media. That Ukraine isn't some model democracy. That's a lie. It's one of the most corrupt nations on planet Earth. It hasn't threatened us not to hold elections this year. It's consolidated all of its media into one state TV media arm. It has banned 11 opposition parties. So against that backdrop, yes, we'll do a reasonable deal with territorial concessions in eastern Ukraine combined with a hard commitment that NATO not admit Ukraine to NATO, but not for free. Putin doesn't get that for free. That is in return for Russia exiting its military alliance with China. That's the single greatest way we can reduce the risk of World War III. So what will others say in response to this? They'll say, well, wouldn't that embolden Xi Jinping to go after Taiwan? It's the opposite. These people don't deal based on analogy. They deal based on hard power. Right now, Xi Jinping's bet is that the U.S. won't want to go to war with two different allied nuclear superpowers, Russia and China, at the same time. But if Russia's no longer in China's camp, then Xi Jinping is going to have to think twice before going after Taiwan. And I have said that we would defend Taiwan for the foreseeable future. So yes, that's how we would reasonably end the war in Ukraine. Not a single other candidate has offered a clear-headed plan of either how to do this or for what the path to victory actually is. I mean, everybody says give the next $100 billion without any clear idea of how that's actually going to lead anything resembling a victory for Ukraine. Nobody's even defined what victory actually counts as for Ukraine. And a war without a mission is a clear path to Iraq 2.0, which I refuse to oversee and preside over as a passive puppet of a president. $7 trillion of our national debt came from two wars in Iraq and Afghanistan that did not advance the American interest. That's $7 trillion of our $34 trillion national debt, with tens of thousands of our own sons and daughters going to die in those wars. So I refuse to repeat those mistakes. This is a deal that Putin would do. This reduces the risk of World War III, and most importantly, allows us to focus on using our own national defense spending to actually defend our own homeland in the United States of America. And so that's a different vision than the Dick Cheney vision, than the Nikki Haley or John Bolton or Chris Christie or, go down the list of the old Republican Party that I think should be relegated to the dustbins of history. They have not served this country well. And whether that's Joe Biden or our party, I'm against it. The way of the future is putting the interests of our own citizens first. Just as my duty as a father is to my sons and to my family, my duty as your next president is to you, the citizens of this country, not another one. And so that's why my foreign policy is clear. I will keep us out of World War III. I will declare independence from communist China. And then I will use our own national defense spending to defend our own homeland from the invasion that we're incurring right here in the United States of America. And I won't apologize for it. Thank you. I appreciate that question. Thank you very much. We'll go right there to the young man.
Hey there, Vivek. I really like a lot of the things that you have to say.
Thank you.
Have a lot of, great ideas that need to be said in the Republican Party. That being said, sometimes it seems like you're running almost to be Trump's running mate or to be on his cabinet because you agree with him on a lot of different issues. So I wanted to know, where do you differ from Trump, or what would you have done differently than Trump did in his first term?
Sure. I appreciate that. I get actually, I've enjoyed the question I've gotten the last few nights. We got it one last night in, Waterloo, whether I would consider Trump as my running mate. My answer to that would be yes, because we have very aligned views. We're aligned about 90% of things, not 100%. But 90% of the way we're aligned on policy. We have some differences. I'm the only candidate, I don't know where he stands on this one, but I'm the only candidate who said I'm against the use of eminent domain for the CO2 pipeline making its way across half this country. I think that half this state. That's the right thing to do. I'm the only person with clarity that I would strip those pharmaceutical companies of those special liability protections that they enjoy. That's the product of crony capitalism. I'm the only candidate who's been clear. I don't know where he is on that. I can tell you where I am on it. I'm dead set against it. I will end birthright citizenship for the kids of illegals in this country. Now, I don't think that Trump is against that, but they duped him. They told him you can't do that because you need a constitutional amendment. No, read the Constitution. The 14th Amendment is clear. Birthright citizenship does not apply to the kids of illegals in this country. So I'll take an oath to the Constitution and keep it. That's what I'm going to do. It's not just about building the wall. I'll use our own troops, our own military, to our own southern border on day one. Yes, I'm not going to be afraid to begin the mass deportations that we require in this country. Because if you're in this country illegally, and I run the government that actually is based on a rule of law, then anybody who's in this country illegally will and should be returned to their country of origin. Again, they duped Trump. They said you can't do this because we only have 6,000 ICE agents, Mr. President. That's what they said, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Know the law. The law says that you can delegate that authority to local law enforcement, of whom we have 1 million. And then the country that put a man on the moon can get this done. They told Trump you can't fire those civil service employees, those federal bureaucrats, because there are these things called civil service protections. Again, read the law. Those civil service protections only apply to individual firings. They do not apply to mass layoffs, and mass firings are absolutely what I am bringing to the D.C. bureaucracy. That's what it's going to take. I'm not going to put Betsy DeVos on top of the Department of Education and say, hey, go figure it out and reform it. That doesn't work. It's bigger and badder than ever. We're going to get in there and shut down the Department of Education and return the $80 billion to parents and teachers across this country, parents who deserve to choose where they send their kids to school. The FBI, I don't want a new building for the FBI. I want to get in there and shut it down, the failed Bureau of Investigation. That's how we drive change in this country. That's not a slogan. It's a very practical plan. There's 35,000 employees at the FBI. 20,000 of them are back office bureaucrats at the J. Edgar Hoover building. They're going to go home and find honest work in the private sector. Bye. They're gone on my watch starting on day one. 15,000 of them are cops, investigative agents on the front lines who we'll need. We'll move them to the DEA or to the U.S. Marshals, both of which have been far more effective at fighting child sex trafficking rings or the fentanyl epidemic than the FBI. So this takes a president who both is an outsider, comes in with sharp elbows and is willing to break things. And admittedly, Trump brought that. I give him credit for it. And I bring that. I think I bring that on steroids, if I may say so myself. I'm not afraid to break things. And that's okay. You've seen me on the debate stage or in this race. That's nothing compared to what we're bringing to Washington, D.C. But it's also going to take an outsider who knows and deeply understands the law and the Constitution in this country. And those two things don't usually go together. Right? You might have the academic law type over here, but they aren't going to execute. You might have the business guy can execute, but is going to get duped if you don't have your own understanding of the law. That's why I'm in this race. I think it's going to take both of those things to actually take our America First agenda to the next level. So you're right. I'm not one of these guys that likes to Monday morning quarterback Donald Trump because I think it's mostly pathetic. These other candidates have been licking his boots for years for money and endorsement and now picking something that they claim they would have done differently. I'm a guy who's built things, and as a guy who's built things, I'm never going to be the guy who said, oh, well, here's what I would have done differently. To the contrary, I might say the opposite. If any of us were in that position, maybe we would have actually made some of the same mistakes. But I believe in learning from every one of my predecessors, from Trump dating back to George Washington, to build on the foundation they have laid, to actually take our America First movement to the next level. So you're right. I've given him more credit than anybody else in this race because it's the right thing to do. Because I do think he was an excellent president. And we deserve, and he deserves, to have us honor his legacy. And I will as the next president. But I'm the future of America First, and I'm here to take this to the next level. That's the truth. And I'll say one more thing while we're on this topic, because you all have a decision to make in about 10 days or so. Iowa caucus on January 15th. This is uncomfortable for me to say, but it's the truth. If you think they're going to let Donald J. Trump get anywhere near that White House again, I'm going to ask you to open your eyes.
They won't.
Oh, I think that they have made that about as crystal clear as they can. They're selling us the rope today that they're going to use to hang us tomorrow. Do not walk into that trap. They're leading us right into the trap that we're walking right into without opening our eyes. So first, they dropped every breadcrumb they can. First started with the protests, then the civil suits, then the state level prosecution, then the federal prosecution number one, then the next federal prosecution. Now forget the judicial system altogether. Just take them off the ballot directly. And that's just 2023. That's a tip of the iceberg compared to what's coming in 2024. Study world history. Study U.S. history. Study the history of the last 5 years. Last time it was a man-made pandemic and a tech-rigged election and then worse. What do you think they're going to do this time? This time, these people, they will stop at nothing. And I mean nothing to keep this man away from the White House. We cannot walk into that trap. We love the man because he got this fight started, but it is now our job to finish it. We owe it to our founding fathers. America First didn't begin in 2016. It began in 1776. Okay, we owe it to our founding fathers. This is bigger than one man. It doesn't belong to Donald Trump, just as it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to you, to us, to we the people of this country. And so we owe it to ourselves and this nation to make sure we take our America First movement to the next level, and that will take fresh legs. Dare I say it, a leader who has not yet been wounded in that war. Somebody who can reach and lead the new generation of Americans. And so I'll respect him and take him as an advisor, but you know what? It's up to us to carry our movement forward. If we're going to be saved, it's going to be because we save ourselves. And so for any of you who are considering, if I wasn't in this race, I'd be doing the same thing, considering going for Donald Trump. I am asking you to do the right thing for our country, not to fall into their trap, not to be duped, to open your eyes and do the right thing for our country on January 15th. That's why I'm in this race, and I'm asking you to support me and help me lead this country. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Sir. I love that Second Amendment sign too, man. So if we want to talk about that, let's start talking about it.
I love that too, so thank you. Thanks for coming again. Thanks for taking my question. The war on drugs has been a complete, utter failure.
Yep.
Joe Biden's 1994 crime bill has locked up and disproportionately affected black and brown communities all throughout the United States of America. I would love to hear your thoughts on decriminalizing entheogenic drugs and releasing nonviolent offenders, and also just criminal justice reform in general.
Yeah, so I think that we got to actually be precise about this. I think in many cases we have actually violent criminals who aren't being locked up enough in local police departments across the country that aren't able to do their jobs for fear of looking over their shoulder, for fear of being sued. And so you want to fight the wave of violent crime in this country, I'm going to tell you how to do it. It's actually, we know how. We've done it at other periods in our history. We're just not doing it precisely now. We're doing it sloppily. Bring back the psychiatric institutions, the mental health institutions. The top source of mental health care in the U.S. today is actually our prison system. So the top form of prison reform is actually put people in a place where they can get psychiatric care, including through involuntary commitment when necessary. And the reason we don't is it's a dirty little underbelly. It's actually because of pharmaceutical industry lobbying. See, there's this reluctance to say anything bad about Ronald Reagan. I love Ronald Reagan. He's one of the great presidents we've had, but the farm industry actually managed to lobby him twice over. They got the special liability exemptions for the vaccine manufacturers. They also managed to shutter the psychiatric institutions, because that's what pharma wanted, to be able to sell more of those atypical antipsychotics that were their blockbuster drugs. We have to bring back those psychiatric institutions. That'd be the top of my prison reform priorities in this country. Next, let local law enforcement actually do their jobs without fear of being sued. More cops on the street with better compensation. And I'd say make their compensation tax-free. That's actually something that actually allows them to give an automatic boost without expanding actually our budget. So that's what I stand for too. Then at the federal level, look, I think that one of the areas where it would be directly synchronous with your question is I actually want to bring this to our veterans. We don't have medical choice in our VA. 40 veterans a day are committing suicide. It's not, they say it's 22. It's closer to 40 per day are committing suicide in this country, turning to fentanyl or worse. I do believe, and it's a little spicy for the Republican Party for me to say this, but that's okay. It's the right thing to do for this country. Those veterans who suffer from PTSD deserve medical choice, including for Schedule I drugs, as medical treatment through the VA. Ayahuasca, ketamine, psilocybin, far better than suicide or fentanyl, which is where they're turning today. And so that's where I'm at, and I think we have a lot of overlap there. It may not be exactly what you might have in mind or many Democrats might put up, but this is the kind of reform that both fights the epidemic of violent crime while also standing for what's right, starting with our own veterans in this country. So hopefully that answers your question. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. We'll go to this gentleman right here.
I'll just stand up and use my voice.
You got a little built-in mic there. I got you there.
So I've personally seen and verified 11,000 fraudulent votes from one county
In Iowa.
not in Iowa, in Michigan.
Is that where you're from?
No, I'm from here in Iowa.
Okay.
So given that systemic fraud from one area, how can you run? I know you say that you're going to do a lot of voter overhaul once you're in the office.
And we will.
Yes.
We have to. This is the only way we have rails we can actually ride. You have trains on broken rails, eventually it falls off the rails. So we'll get that done.
So how are you going to get into the office, given that there's so much fraud and they're going to do it again?
Yeah, so look, I'd love to tell you it's all honky-dory. It's not. Our only choice is this has to be a moral mandate. This has to be a landslide victory like what Reagan delivered in 1980. And a landslide minus some shenanigans. You better be sure to expect it. A landslide minus some shenanigans is still a victory. This can't be a 50.1 election that MSNBC is trotting out the winner 6 days after the election. If so, I don't think we have a country left. We're skating on thin ice right now. That's where we are. And I think I can deliver that in a way that nobody else in this race can. We're bringing the next generation along. 40% of our donors, the 150,000 some odd donors to this campaign, 40% of them are first-time ever donors to the GOP. That's unprecedented. It's 2% for a normal Republican. That's what it's going to take to deliver this landslide. It's part of why I don't sit around here just bashing Democrats or Biden for a lot of reasons. First of all, Biden's not even the president. Let's be honest about that. He's a puppet for the managerial class. That's what he is. It's a permanent state. What's that? You got a sense of future comedian here. I like that. But I think that I love the truth sign too, brother. That's what this is all about. But I think it's going to require a leader who can reach and bring that next generation along. America First is bigger than just the Republican Party. This isn't about black or white or red or blue. This is about 1776. If you believe that you get to speak your mind freely as long as I get to in return, if you believe in the rule of law, using our military to protect our borders, if you believe in self-governance, that a bunch of unelected bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. should not be the ones who wield the power of the federal administrative police state, if you believe these things, we're on the same team. I've been to the south side of Chicago in this campaign where the Republican consultants will say, why are you wasting your time there? There's a room like this one. Different in some ways, 95% black. I'm told 150% Democrat. The way the votes get counted, maybe that's true, right? Systemic fraud, as you call it. But I tell you, the people in that room agreed with me every bit as those of us in this room do, that it is wrong that they're converting South Shore High School in the inner city there to an encampment for migrants at $7,000 per month per illegal migrant, when the people in that community are rightly asking, what the heck about me? I'm sitting right here and my country isn't doing much to care about the plight that I'm in. Every one of them, or at least most of them, were at least as in agreement with me about my policy on ending the Ukraine war in a sensible way, then frankly a good portion of the Republican Party is. So forget the black versus white or the red versus blue. This is about an America First agenda that goes beyond those traditional lines. And if we get that right, I think 80% of this country is on the winning side of this war. And I call it a war because we're in a war. You can't win a war unless you know that you're in one. This is a war not between red and blue. It is a war between those of us who love the United States of America and our founding ideals and a fringe minority who hates this country and what we stand for. Between the permanent state and the everyday citizen, between the Great Reset and the Great Uprising. That's what this is about. So if you believe in those pro-American ideals, we're on the same team. I think 80% of this country does. I think half the 20% are people younger than us who never learned those ideals in the first place. We can bring them along too. Some of them are already here. And that's how we're going to win this in a landslide. That's what I owe you. If you make me your nominee, my obligation back to you is to deliver you a landslide election. If I win the Iowa caucus, as I believe we will, I am your next president. And if I'm your next president, we shut down that deep state and revive our national identity, national pride in this country. And yes, by the next election, we'll have a rail system of elections that we actually can trust and believe in. You do your part, I deliver you the rest. That's our deal. So get that done. That's how we get our country back. I appreciate it, my man. Thank you. Right there, sir. Here. Take this right here, buddy.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dallas. I'm an active duty chief, United States Navy, out of Chicago. Just had to come here and see you. Questions in regards to the military, written down so I didn't miss a beat. With military recruitment missing 41,000 in this fiscal year for its mark, what would you do to motivate 18 to 25-year-old Americans to serve in the armed forces? Are you open to mandatory service like Israelis do, barring some kind of educational commitment or medical limitations? Additionally, the Navy is the greatest Navy in the world, although we are the smallest as of right now. We have about 280 ships versus our greatest threat, which is China.
Which has over 300.
About over 300.
Yep.
What would you do to grow the U.S. Navy since we're so vital to the security and prosperity of this nation? And lastly, I just want to say thank you for all you're doing and for speaking the truth.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for your service to this country, man. I appreciate it. I'll address the second piece first. The shipbuilding capacity is actually our biggest bottleneck. And then here's the dirty little secret. It's kind of ugly. We depend on China for almost all of our military production in the U.S. I want you to process how boneheaded that is. I mean, it's bad enough that we depend on China for 95% of our pharmaceuticals. Right? The same country that, yes, started a man-made pandemic in Wuhan and unleashed hell on the world. That same country is the one, what do you think they're going to do to our legal pharmaceutical supply chain? The one that's lacing the illegal pharmaceuticals coming from Mexico with fentanyl? What the heck do you think they're going to do with our legal pharmaceutical supply chain? So if that wasn't boneheaded enough, turns out our F-35 jets, to much of our naval production and industrial base, depends on China in a way that their military doesn't actually depend on ours. So what the heck do you think they're going to do if we ever end up, God forbid, in a conflict situation? So the first thing is onshoring a lot of that shipbuilding capacity. In the United States, yes, but then you get the purists who say that, and then it doesn't happen because I'm not a magician. I can't wave a magic wand and make that happen. We have to combine that with also working with our allies in Japan and South Korea and India and Australia and elsewhere, because it's just that urgent. So first best is in the United States and second best is with our allies. We actually can station up even our naval capacity, and you'll understand this in Japan. We have ships coming all the way back from the South China Sea to the west coast of the United States where they should be able to go to our bases in Japan. It doesn't work that way to get refurbished. So that's basic, intelligent changes we can make. And I say this with full respect to you and everybody else who's serving in our military. I think a lot of our managerial class in the Pentagon has completely lost the plot, and we're going to clean house at much of that dead weight that's hanging out at the Pentagon. And that leads to the answer to your first question. That's where a lot of the poison's coming from. Part of the reason we have a 25% recruitment deficit is a lot of young people don't want to serve in the military where they're taught to apologize for their skin color. The General Mark Milley's of the world spouting off about white rage or systemic racism, that's not mission aligned to actually protecting this country. And so part of what I want to say is, yes, young people do, it's true, have a crisis of national pride in this country. No doubt about it. And 60% of young Americans say they would sooner give up their right to vote than to give up their access to TikTok. That's where we are right now, actually. I mean, I wish, I would be laughing if it weren't true. This is where we are right now, hard fact. And so I've always, for years, I have toyed with this. I have been at the doorstep of the idea of mandatory service, but it's not the American way. In my first book, Woke Inc., if you get to the later part of that book, I struggled with it. And that's why I say I've written 3 books over the last several years, and you can see the evolution of my thought here. I think the right way is to, yes, revive some civic duty. So I believe every 12th grader who graduates from high school should have to pass the same civics test that every immigrant has to pass in order to become a voting citizen of this country. You got to have some skin in the game. And if tests aren't for everybody, then fine. 6 months in a military or first responder role in order to gain your full right to vote in this country. Now, some people could say, that upset the mainstream media. Let me just say that when I unveiled this in Iowa this spring. 10-year-old girl came up, actually, at a later event. Her name's Lena. She came up with a printed version of the 100-question civics test. 60% is the passing score. Most adults today in the U.S. would fail it. She got 100 out of 100 at the age of 10. Okay, so this is possible. It gives us hope. The next generation has to have some skin in the game. And then part of this, of how we do this as young people also, the flip side is they're not stupid. They say, if this is how you're going to treat your veterans on the back end, why the heck would I actually make the sacrifices to serve on the front end? And so that's why I have comprehensive veterans policy. Part of this is to take care of our veterans, of course. But part of this is to stand for what's right in America. Stand for the idea that a country that doesn't take care of its own veterans isn't a country. And so young people see that. I think they are actually going to step up and serve more. I think veterans benefits and military compensation should not be subject to federal taxation. I think that the veterans should be treated as the shareholders of the VA, setting the pay of the people who run it and the ones who don't. Paid 6-week decompression buffers when you come back from combat roles. If you do that, that brings down PTSD by 80%. You shouldn't have to drive 120 miles to the nearest VA center to get your medical care. You should be able to get community-based medical care because that's what it means to stand for our own troops and our own veterans. Revive our mission. The best way we stand for our troops and what young people understand is for me to tell them, the next generation, that I will not send you with a gun over your shoulder in somebody else's trench to fight somebody else's war in places like Iraq to, frankly, where we might be headed in Ukraine. No, if you're going to serve in our country and put your life on the line, and that's what makes it honorable, that's what every person who serves in the military is doing in some way, it will be to protect the citizens of this nation. And they can be proud to actually know that as they serve this country. So I think we're going to be able to do that. That's my obligation to those who serve. And I'm confident by the end of my first term, we won't have that recruitment deficit anymore. We will have, dare I say it, a recruitment surplus as we revive national pride in my kids and their generation. That's half the job of the next president and the next commander-in-chief. You have my word on that. Thank you. I appreciate it, sir. Time for a couple more questions, and then we're going to wrap. Right there in the back.
Thank you for your time, obviously. My name is Marcus Stallings. I'm the vice president of WIFMA, Wisconsin Hemp Farmers Manufacturers Association. To piggyback on a couple things as far as with scheduling for narcotics, dealing with veterans, especially for medicine. I know that was a lot, but I broke that down because the pharmaceuticals companies are the ones that did a lot of lobbying back in the day to take cannabis off and make it a high Schedule I drug. But as you even said, like there's other holistic medicines that will help our veterans. With the Farm Bill coming up in 2024, what are your stances as far as cannabis industrial hemp? Not necessarily for the cannabinoid extraction, but where do you stand on that? Because, especially with building materials going up, there are a lot of uses that can come out of cannabis that even I wouldn't know because of lack of education.
So let me just sort of, this is a very specific question, but let me just give you something about my candidacy that you all ought to know. The promises that I've made you, with the exception of the one that I made you about the elections, that one requires Congress. But it will be my top legislative priority in the first year, and we will deliver it. With the exception of that, everything else I've just told you today is a promise that I get to keep as your next president without asking Congress for permission or for forgiveness. Because as the president, I run the executive branch of the government. Shutting down 75% of the bureaucracy, I'll do that as your president. Shuttering the FBI, to the ATF, to the CDC, to the U.S. Department of Education, I'll do that as your next president. Fixing the VA and standing for our veterans. Fixing our broken foreign policy, I do that as our commander-in-chief. Moving our troops to the southern border and our northern border too, I do that as the commander-in-chief. Same thing with respect to ending birthright citizenship for the kids of illegals. That's a law enforcement function. And that's my rule in this campaign. I make the promises that I will keep as your next president. And I'm not going to make the promises of what is in the sausage-making factory of the legislative branch of government. And I think that's where most presidents get it wrong. They'll make some false promise, never kept, because it's contingent on 500 people what they do or don't do in Congress. So I don't make contingent promises. I make the promises that I will keep as your next president. And that's how you can hold me accountable. Because if I don't get done the things I just named for you, the things that we've been talking about today, that's not anybody else's fault but mine. They'll say, oh, that's difficult to work through the administrative state. Well, if you're president of the United States, man up and run the executive branch, which you've actually been tasked to run. So that's what I'll do as your next president. And that's why I'm not going to make a promise that actually requires going through Congress. But I appreciate you stepping up and coming here from Wisconsin and asking that question. It's just my principle is I'm going to stick to the promises I can keep, and it's the ones that I've told you today that I will deliver. Thank you, my man. And we'll take one. Oh, we got young man right here. I can't leave you hanging, and then I think I see one in the back, and we'll finish and give you the final word.
Thank you.
How old are you?
10.
Double digits already. All right.
Yeah.
Big one.
So when my parents own a business, and they told me through 2020 and 2023, they like the government enforced like certain kinds of rules for the pandemic and certain kind of things for their workers that like they complained about, and like they said it was a lot worse than it was before like 2020. Like, just what's your thought about that?
Yeah, about sort of the pandemic restrictions and how that affected small businesses. Can I ask, what kind of business do your parents run?
They own Seven Hills Brewery.
A brewery?
Yeah, they own Seven Hills.
7 Hills. Oh, okay, good. Good. All right, well, tell them they're doing a good job. I love that. Good. It's awesome. Are they here? Tell them thank you. Tell them thank you. What's that? Keith and Abby. Oh, yeah, we met. That's good. That's good. Oh, thank you. Thanks for the warm welcome. Well, I'll tell you, a lot of those pandemic restrictions, this became a religion in this country. And COVIDism became a cult. I'm mistaken in calling it a religion. Religions have withstood the test of time. This one has not. It's a cult. And I think what happened, there's two parts to the story. I mean, the short part of the story is you had bad leaders at every level who let them do this, actually. Shutting down the country and everything else. But if we don't learn from our mistakes in the past, we're doomed to make those same mistakes in the future. And I think the real cause actually wasn't even the people in charge. It's actually requiring all of us to take a long, hard look in the mirror ourselves. Right? It's a nation of sheep that breeds a government of wolves. That's what the Second Amendment's actually all about. And so we got to look inside and ask ourselves, coming out of COVID, why is it that now the climate fanaticism is replacing that vacuum? The answer is we're wired to bend the knee to something. Right? If you don't, there's an old expression that goes, if you have a hole the size of God in your heart and God does not fill it, something else will instead. If you don't pledge allegiance to that flag, you pledge allegiance to a different flag instead. That's quite literally where the idea of the transgender flag comes from. It's the stuff of Scripture. When the Israelites escaped from the Pharaoh, they're lost in the wilderness, yet to find the promised land. What do they say? We want to go back and be ruled by the Pharaoh. And so in some cases, I find us doing this in our movement. We're all guilty of it to some extent. We'll complain about the Pharaoh and expect somebody else to solve it without taking a long, hard look inside and asking ourselves, what is it that makes us want to bend the knee? That's what I think was happening. The COVID pandemic really revealed how we've become that nation of sheep. Young people used to be the ones protesting about government restrictions. They were bending the knee on college campuses across the board, and it goes back to that hunger for purpose. Right now, we're hungry for a cause. We are lost. We're starved for purpose and meaning and identity at a time in our national history when the things that used to fill that void, faith in God, patriotism, hard work, family, these things have disappeared, and that's what allows the poison to fill the void, from wokeism to transgenderism to climatism to COVIDism to Zelenskyism, in a certain sense of the word. to depression, anxiety, fentanyl, suicide. These are symptoms of that deeper void. And so, will I tell you as your next president? Of course I will. God forbid we're ever in that situation again, and I can't tell you there won't be a next time. We won't shut down this country. We'll have free speech. If you had been allowed to debate those lockdowns, we would have never had those lockdowns. If you'd been allowed to debate those vaccine mandates, we would have never had those vaccine mandates. That's what we got to learn. And we'll never have that again in this country. True medical choice in this country. Nobody's going to foist something down your throat or on your or into your arm that you didn't sign up for. Absolute medical choice in this country. All of that we'll get for the next time around. God forbid there ever is one. And we're going to go back and get justice for last time around. If you were told in the U.S. military that somehow you had to step down or be kicked out or fired from your role because you refused to take the shot, you get your job back with full back pay times 1.5 times. I pledge to that too. Strip the pharma companies of their vaccine liability so we can actually have justice for those who were forced to take something and suffered injury as a consequence. Yes, we're going to fix all of that, but we're not going to do it alone. What I want to leave you with. Sometimes we have the expectation it's going to be one political messiah coming from the on high from the White House down to save us. In our politics, it doesn't work that way. If we're going to be saved, it is going to be because we save ourselves. That every one of us steps up to do our part in reviving this country. So I'll do my part as your next president. We'll shut down the deep state. We'll actually restore 3 branches of government, not 4. I'll swear an oath to the Constitution and I'll keep it. But that's going to require parents and small business owners and teachers and coaches and pastors across this country to play their role too. If we're going to be saved, it is going to be because we save ourselves. That's how we're going to get this country back. And so I'm going to do my part. You do yours. Tell your parents, thank you for raising a smart young man. It's the most important thing they can be doing for this country. And I'm proud of them, too. We have time for one last question before we wrap it up. Thank you. Sir, we'll give you the final word.
How are you going to fight the corruption of the media to get all this done?
I'm doing it mostly day after day in this campaign. So this is why I'm so big on holding a hard line against internet censorship. Because the free and open internet is the last best check that we have on our corrupt, and it is corrupt to its bone, the corrupt media establishment in this country. And by the way, mainstream media is not just left-wing media. I've learned that in this campaign. Mainstream media is basically centralized media of any kind. But the best check against that is directly reaching the people with the truth. And that's the last bastion that they then try to come after. So I don't call it big tech censorship anymore. That's not what it is. It is government tech censorship. That's what this is. The government's using these tech companies to do through the back door what the government could not directly do through the front door under the Constitution. That's the truth of what's happening. And you know what? That's illegal. When the government does it, that's an illegal behavior. They can't use threats or special inducements, as they are, to get private companies to do their dirty work. So anytime a government official has threatened a tech company or threatened any company to do something that the government couldn't do directly, I will require that we publish it, we see it, we roll that log over, we will see what crawls out, and then we will hold the lawbreakers accountable. Because a lot of this actually comes from the government's connectivity to the tech companies and to that media through the back door. That's where we need to get this right. So I'm never going to be the president who acts like what I'm criticizing Zelensky for, right? Or Putin. I mean, they're really not so different from one another, telling their own media what they can and can't say. We don't want that in this country. But the irony is that's actually what is happening in this country through the back door. So end that. That's how we actually get the integrity of our First Amendment and our First Amendment culture back in this country. And the other thing is I'm going to show up. I did that CNN town hall, even though they ended it 5 minutes early because they couldn't stand me talking about the hard truths of what happened on January 6th. They had a conniption of their own audience hearing about it. Now they're going to hear about it because it's the truth. You know, and I think that that's up to us to level up, right? Many other Republicans, I get it, have said, I won't talk to those networks because whichever network it is, because whatever, they're not nice to us. No, we got to level up. If I'm going to sit across the table from Xi Jinping, I'll sit across the table from a left-wing podcast. I don't care, left-wing, right-wing, whatever it is. We're going to handle it. You ask a question, I don't screen whether you're a Democratic plant or not. I don't really care. It's going to actually be grounded in the truth. Because we can't be victims. And I think that's one thing you got to know about me, which I hope sets the bar for the rest of our party and our movement too. We got to move on from being victims. I tell this to the left all the time. We have this culture of victimhood in this country. Our inner animal spirit in this country, it has been domesticated, it has been tamed, it has been whipped into submission by this new culture that penalizes excellence and embraces victimhood. And what happened is our culture of excellence, it left oceans to lift up places like China, while their culture of victimhood came back here to hold us down. And when we rallied behind the cry to make America great again, we did not just hunger for one man. We hungered for the unapologetic pursuit of excellence in this country. That's what it means to be an American. It's time to unleash that inner animal spirit again in this country. We're not victims, we're victorious. That's what I'm going to teach my kids. I don't care what your shade of melanin is. I don't care what your gender is. I don't care what kind of sexual preference they make you check off on a box. You win through your own hard work and commitment and dedication without crying along the way. And if we do that, then we don't anymore have to be this nation in decline that we've become. We don't have to be at the end of the ancient Roman Empire, folks. You know what George Washington would say if he were here tonight with us? He would say, what I see tonight is a nation that is still a little young, actually. Hey, you still got another 250 years and then some. Step up and seize it. Going through our own version of our adolescence. Figuring out who we're going to be when we grow up. So we don't have to be this nation in decline. I think we still can be. And I think this might be the last time I could come here and tell you this. I don't think I could tell you this 4 years from now. But today I still think we can be a nation in our ascent. I won't tell you that it's morning in America right now because it's not, but it can be. I'm not going to be the guy who tells you the American dream is alive and well. It is not. It is alive and hanging on for life support. But it can be. So if you all do your part in about 10 days, that's what I'm asking you for. 15 minutes of your time to save this country. Take the time between now and then to tell 10 people in this community what we talked about. Bring them too. The system isn't made for a guy like me to do this, believe me. It's not built for that, but that's okay. They don't get to decide. You do. If you all do your part, we will do ours to make sure that this is still the country where we will look our kids in the eye and tell them and mean it, that you still get ahead in this country with your own hard work, your own commitment, your own dedication. And that you know what? You are free to speak your minds at every step of the way. That is the American dream. That is what I am here to lead us to. And with your help, that is what we are going to revive to save this great nation. Thank you guys tonight. God bless you and your families. And may God bless our United States of America, and may our best days still be ahead of us. Thank you, guys. God bless. Thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Good to see you. Get up here, man.
together, we right here in this room can make this man the next president of the United States of America.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. I'm going to do this.
We have a very special opportunity this evening. We are going to do a photo line to allow anyone that would like to get a picture with Vivek. If you will line up on this side of the room.
Thank you. I
And
appreciate you,
please
brother.
be
You're
respectful
awesome.
of
If you spread the
everyone's
message in this
time
community,
evening.
we're going to dominate.
We would ask
I
that
love
you
it,
just
man.
take a
Thank you.
moment to take
I
a
appreciate
picture
it.
because there
We
will
got
be
your
many
back,
people in line behind you. And we would like to make sure everyone has the opportunity to get a picture with Vivek.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you coming out.
I think you might have switched me, maybe.
Well, you know what? I saw your hat. But I love the man, but it's about our movement, right? Take it to the next level. Stand. This is the one that protects all the others. Yeah, so don't forget it. What's your name? Kelsey, I appreciate it. Spread the message. Take the same movement to the next level. We'll see you. Thank you. Thank you. Hey,
Hi,
good to
hi.
see you. Do
Good
you
to
serve
see
in the Army?
No, my son is down in basic training.
Oh,
right
thank you. Tell him thank you. I
cool.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
That's my wife, yeah. Oh, okay.
Thank you. I
Thank
appreciate
you, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to
Thank
see you,
you.
brother.
Oh, yeah.
Spread the message. Is that,
Oh, yeah.
Is that your son, too?
No, my son actually went to Fort Leonard Wood.
Oh, did he?
He
Tell
just
him
left
thank
for
you, too.
Christmas.
Okay.
He's an Army specialist electrician.
Thank
so
you.
his time he's done to be a nuclear power specialist.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate you
thank
raising him.
And
Good
I got
man like
another
that.
one that leaves in July for the military, too.
Thank you. To your family. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. We got your back, all right? Thank you, sir.
After I watched the first debate, I was so proud of you. You didn't let them career politicians bully you. You stood up to them.
Thank you.
And you're a Donald Trump, but you're smarter and you have a filter. And I always said Trump would get in if he'd learn how to keep his mouth shut and not piss off too many people. And you're very smart. You're intelligent. You're a businessman. You're successful.
Don't forget this evening.
You've built a great company. I think you'd save this country, and I sure hope you get the support in Iowa. You've
If
got
you
my
do it,
support.
if you spread this message, you make it happen. It's in your hands.
I'm
Make sure you know where your caucus precinct location
Thank you
is.
for
We're gonna do this,
campaigning so
brother.
hard, and I wish you all the luck. I hope next time I talk to you, you're going to be our president.
With your
Good
help,
luck.
we will, man. I'm
Good
going to do
luck,
it.
my
We're
friend.
going to do our part.
Thank
you, man. I appreciate that.
I want you to meet my boy, Max.
Thank you. Thank you, man. How you doing, brother? Good to see
The
you.
race is over for
Good
me,
to
but
see
his
you.
is just starting.
What do you mean?
Well, you know what? Nothing I can change, but you can change it.
Yes, that's right. That's right. For your generation. But you, with your help, we can do that for you. How old are you, brother?
I'm 21.
You come out, bring your generation out.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Shock the caucus with that. Sign up with us. We're going to make this happen. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Oh, hey. Yeah, let me I'll just come down.
Okay.
How you doing?
Good. How
What's
are
your
you?
name?
Teresa.
Teresa.
I'm Al.
Al?
Gassman.
It's good to see you, Al.
Nice
Thank
to
you.
meet you.
Thanks for being here, guys. Thank you. All
Thank
the best and spread the message in this community.
Yes.
We're going to get this done, guys.
Looking
Yeah.
forward to see you on Timcast.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm enjoying that. You going to be there?
No, no.
Okay,
but
a lot,
I'm
yeah.
going to watch it.
That'll be fun. That'll be fun. He's a good. We're going to have a good discussion. I appreciate it. You want to come in? Thank you. Good to see you, man. Thank you for coming driving down from Wisconsin.
You did that. You did your move on CNN, making them look like fools. Boy, that was funny.
I made them look like what they are.
I hear that.
Thank you, man.
If
I
there's
appreciate
anything
that.
we can do in Iowa, man, let us know.
Thank you. Actually, if you're open to volunteering with us here
Yeah.
for the next 10 days, we actually could take that.
Okay. Yeah.
And so if you can help, Todd, he's from Wisconsin, he can volunteer for us.
We just became best friends.
Thanks,
tonight,
man.
so-
I appreciate that. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Absolutely.
Dominant.
Thank you.
Spread the message. We're going to dominate this, man. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Oh, sir.
It's good to see you, man.
Good to see you. Thank you so much for everything you do.
We're not going to stop till we get this done, brother.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Bring a bunch of people out in this community. We're going to shock the world.
We got
Thanks,
you.
man. Thank you. Hey. How you doing, man? It's good to see you.
Would you mind signing my George
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, my
Washington
gosh.
novel?
It's my honor, dude. He's the OG.
Yes, he is.
The first America, first conservative, if you ask me.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
your
man.
patriotism.
I appreciate it. Do you live here?
Yeah, I do.
Spread the message.
Yeah, my brother lives in Columbus. Works
Oh, is
for
that right?
NetJets. He said he'd be happy to fly anytime.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. He's a good man. Tell him to keep doing what he's doing.
You have a beautiful family.
Spread the message and bring him out. You done the caucus before?
Yes, sir.
You're done. Good man. Hey,
Hi.
it's good to see you guys. Oh my gosh, how old is this little one?
8 months.
What's her name?
Elise.
Elise. It's good to see you. She's so good. Okay.
She's a little bit sick.
No, I understand.
Nice
We
to
have a
meet you.
17-month-old and my near 4-year-old. You guys, beautiful family.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Nice
guys.
meeting you.
Have you done the caucus before?
I've not.
You got to do it this time.
All right.
It's a must.
All right.
Good for
I'll
their
get after
generation,
it.
for her
Sounds good.
generation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Spread the message, guys. Take care. Good seeing you, man.
How you doing,
How
sir?
you doing? Good. What's your name?
Peter.
Peter. Good to see you, brother.
Vivek, nice to meet you.
Yes. Thank you, man. You spread that message. You done the Iowa caucus before?
Yes, I am.
Good. Good for you, brother. Keep it up. We're going to do our part. Thank you. It's good to see you, man.
One more time.
Good to
I'll
see you, yeah.
Wisconsin. You get one
Thank you,
more?
man.
One more.
Thank you. If you're open to volunteering with us, man, we would love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, guys. It's good to see you. Thank you, man. I appreciate you being here. Oh, you are? Okay, well, thank you for your service to this country, and we got your back.
Thank you.
You heard what I said about the veterans. Can we hold this? You should be the shareholders of the VA and should get everything you need from this country.
It's crazy right now.
Covered up.
Thank you.
Love it, brother.
Thank you.
What's your name?
Ron.
Thank you.
Butler.
Thank you, Ron.
Got
Means
a
lot to
small
me.
business here. We're just trying to make
Awesome.
life work.
Have you done the
It's
Iowa
getting
Caucus
crazy.
before?
Yes. Yep.
Awesome. Spread the message here.
I signed up to do for you for the next 10
Awesome.
days.
Awesome, brother. We appreciate it. It's good to see you. How you
Good to see
doing?
I'm doing good.
Thank you, man. Spread that message next 10 days.
Sounds good.
Get us to the home stretch.
That's right.
Get us there. I appreciate it. Thank you. Hi, how are you? It's good to see you. Do you live around here?
I do. I'm a neurologist here.
Oh, you are?
Yes,
I appreciate
all of the.
Poor visiting NT. She's a
Yes, yes.
laryngologist.
So.
If you spread the message and get a lot of people out here,
Yes.
the next 10 days is the whole ball game.
Yep.
Have you done the caucus before?
No, I have caucus.
You have? Okay, good, good. Thank you.
I'm already
Good
decided,
to see you
but
guys.
I brought her.
Oh, awesome. That's good. Well, did we bring you along today?
What?
Did we bring you along
Yes,
today? Thank you. I'm glad. I'm
Yeah.
grateful you being here. How old are you, man?
Good, how are you?
How you doing?
Pretty good.
Good. Who's got the Ohio State phone?
Me.
Oh, is that you? You're
I'm
a buck?
an Ohio State grad.
Oh, really? My
So
wife's
I'm-
on the faculty there at the med
really?
school. At the med school,
Welding
yeah.
engineering.
Oh, is that
So,
right?
yeah.
It's good to see you, man. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Next 10 days, guys. So spread the word. We're going to make this happen. Thank you. Good to see you, man.
Good to
Thank
see
you.
you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for service.
Thank you for everything. I
appreciate
love
it, man.
what you're doing, man. Like,
thank you.
I was on the Trump train, but I mean, like, you're the fresh legs we need, man.
Thank you.
And
We're
I
going to take
just-
that movement
Yeah.
to the next level.
Yeah, I really appreciate everything you're doing, man.
Thank
So
you. It means
you
a
so
lot
much,
to me,
yeah.
and you spread this message. And next 10 days, that's a ball game.
Okay.
I think we're going to do this.
All right. Thank you. It's a
Take
pleasure
care,
to meet
brother.
you. Thank you.
Honor, man.
Hello.
Good to see you. Hey, how you doing, man?
Thank you for fighting the fight.
Oh, of course.
I
What's your
appreciate
name, man?
energy. Joe.
Joe, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you, Joe. Next 10 days.
All right.
Let's make it happen.
You
Thank you.
bet.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you. What's your name?
Hillary.
Hillary. Hey, good to
Good
see you
luck.
guys.
Precinct captain.
Oh, you are? Awesome. Thank you.
Good
I
luck.
appreciate it. Thanks for everything you're doing, guys. Next
They're
10
my
days.
kids, so you got to convince them.
Oh, I would love that. Yeah. The next 10 days is the whole ball game.
Well, I'll be there next Monday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Spread that message in this community. Thank you for being here, guys.
Hi.
Hi, good to see you. Are
Nice
these?
to meet you.
Is this your family?
My parents.
Okay, good. Good
How
to
you
see you.
doing?
What's your name, man?
Lucas.
Lucas.
Victoria.
Victoria, good to meet you. Thanks for being here, guys. So, have you made a decision on the caucus yet?
Honestly, I probably would have voted Trump, but I don't know.
Yeah, you
You're
made
the
a good
new
point
Trump.
tonight.
You
We're
did.
gonna take this to the next level. I just think that there is a trap. It's up to us to not fall into.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
Yeah.
So we're counting on you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna do it for you. Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate
Take
it.
care, guys.
Yeah,
We'll
you
get
too.
this done. Hey, good to see you, man. What's your name?
I'm Nick.
Nick. Good to see you, brother. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Great to meet
Good
you.
to see you, brother.
That's great.
How old are you?
I'm 25.
Awesome. Your generation's what it's about. Spread the message. We have your support. Would love to have it. Thank you, man. Take care. Good to see you, man. What's your name, brother?
My name's Wade.
Wade. Good to see you.
Yeah, that's all right.
Do you have you've done the Iowa caucus before?
No, first time.
First time. Come out this time. I'd love to have your support.
Yeah.
Thank
Do
you.
I see you on Tim Pool?
Yes.
A few times, so yeah, that's where I know you're from.
Well, and you're going to do the live show in.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Coming up in Des
yeah.
Moines, right?
Yeah, we're looking
Yeah.
forward to it. It's going to be awesome. So,
right. Hey, thanks for
thank you,
coming
man. I appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks for
Hey,
coming, man.
good to see you, man.
Nice
It's good
see
to be
you.
here, brother. It's good to see you guys.
Can I get you to sign this?
Yeah,
real quick?
absolutely.
I appreciate you coming out. I know you're crazy going around all the different counties, but it's
We love it.
noticed. It's just
We're doing over 330 events, actually, by the time of the Iowa
yeah.
caucus.
Well, it's a double grass league. You guys.
Oh, and then some.
And
Yeah.
then some.
What do you think about Donald Trump walking out UFC events? Would you ever do that with him?
Oh, I like fight events. I think I went down to the Jake Paul fight recently. It's pretty fun.
with Nate Diaz?
Yeah. That ring side. I was actually in the ring for that one.
Oh my gosh.
I was in the ring for that one. Yeah. Hey,
Awesome.
have you done the Iowa Caucus before?
No, I just actually moved here from Illinois.
So you got,
and,
if you moved here,
just
you got to do it.
Got residency, so
You got to do
yeah.
it, and bring as many. Tell your friend to bring as many people in your generation out. We're going to shock the system.
All right, sounds
Thank
good.
you, man.
The first picture was
Oh, we
blurry.
love that. Oh yeah.
We're good. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, man.
Thank you
I
for
appreciate
everything.
it. Thank you for everything. Take your family. How you doing, man? Good to see you. Thank you. Good to see you, brother. This is your place?
Yes.
Good to see you again.
We're across the street. We just took this over this week.
Congratulations, guys.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Congratulations, guys. Amazing.
Max wants Vivek to sign his as well.
Okay.
Oh, I will. Absolutely.
Let's get a picture.
Guys.
The name's
You're the man. What's that?
Eli. The name's Eli.
Eli.
Just Eli.
Good to see Eli. Sorry. Thank you, guys. Proud of you. You got to raise some good kids.
I hope you win.
I appreciate it, man. We're gonna do everything we can. We got your back.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Spread the message in this community.
That's all I've
We're
been
gonna
doing.
dominate this.
She's captain in the caucus?
Oh, you are?
I don't know.
Or precinct captain?
No, he sent me an email and said, "Here, honey,
She signed it. She
just
is.
watch the thing."
Okay,
And I was
awesome.
like, "Oh, okay, I'll watch it." And he's like, "I'm like, you signed up to
What
be
do you
team
want?
captain." Thanks, honey.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. These kids are great.
Freedom's not free, especially if they're a free thinker.
Yeah,
Something else.
I love that.
Appreciate you,
We're
man.
good. We're good. Thank you. You light up this community, man. We're going to do this. Thank you. Hey, guys. Good to see you again. Thank you for being here, guys.
Thank you, sir.
If you're able to volunteer and make some of these phone calls for us,
We've been doing it.
because you know the message now. You
We've
guys
been
can be.
doing We've been doing it.
At this point, you really understand the nuance
Oh,
as
yeah.
well, too.
No,
Esther, these guys are going to be awesome from our volunteer perspective, so I want to make sure we
we've
get
made
that.
a bunch of calls, and I've also contacted a bunch of the veterans groups here in the
Excellent,
state.
excellent. Thank you.
Encourage them to get involved.
Because we got their back. That's the answer. Thank you,
Thank you,
man.
sir.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Hey.
Thank you so much for
Good to
visiting
see you.
us.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm a small business owner, and we've got a lot of regulations. Thank you for knocking down the government.
I appreciate that, man. We won't stop till we get it done. Thank you.
Hi. I think we're the last ones
Hey.
who can go
Good
to
see you.
bed. Hopefully.
Good to see you guys. Thank you.
Excellent job on the Dave Smith podcast.
He's a good dude.
Yeah, I love
Yeah,
to
we
hear
love
you.
it.
I'm part of the
Have you
problem,
done the
man.
Have you done the caucus here before?
No,
You gotta do it this time.
Been
It's
a
a must.
registered
It's a must.
libertarian my whole life.
Well, it's
so
good. Come on.
This
I mean,
will be
just-
the first one.
Awesome.
For the
We got same
Republican
instincts.
Party.
Yeah, I mean, I voted
absolutely,
libertarian in my first
absolutely.
election, but
absolutely,
let's
I love to see it.
The thing is, you can't just move the terms of dialogue. We actually got to win.
Yeah,
And to do
right,
that,
right.
You got to do it
That's
through this
that's
party.
why we're moving over for this one, man.
Thank you, man.
So
I appreciate
yeah,
it.
absolutely.
And if
Thank
you can bring
We
as many of
appreciate-
our fellow libertarian
I'm
types,
pushing them
that'd be
all,
awesome.
man. I'm
Thank you,
pushing all
guys.
the ones I can. I
It's
really
good.
appreciate
Good,
you
man.
spending the time in Iowa.
Means a lot. Thank you. Okay, got it. Got to switch. Good to see you, man. I'm glad we got that. Thank you. Why don't we let him have yours? We can do that. That's good. Levers are. Thank you, man. It means a lot. You spread the message. What's your name?
Thank you, Kelsey.
Kelsey, you told me. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
You do? All right. Well, you know what? He's already swapped his hat. We now got to get a giant Truth Vivek sticker for his truck too. So that's good. Yeah, no, we respect it. We can put it on the. We can put it back. Thank you. Good to see you. Good to see you. What's your name? Laura. Good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Very impressive.
Jack,
Thank you very
I
much.
appreciate you guys being here. Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
You
Thank
could do it without your wife? Is that what you're
Thank
trying
you.
to tell us? You said
Well-
for a couple more days. Who's taking
She's
care
at
of the
home.
boys?
We got one with me and one with her.
She's ear, nose, and throat?
She's ear, nose, and throat. And the irony is that our younger one has a cold, so she's with him right now. Oh, she's
sorry. I'm a
you're
urologist.
Okay, so her father's a urologist, actually. He's one of the top prostate cancer guys in the country. Ash Tawari is his name.
I'm so far out of the
Yeah,
academics,
yeah,
I wouldn't
yeah.
even know, too.
Yeah. Yes.
Your parents, though, instilled it.
That's kind of you, man. Do you guys live around here?
Great. Yes. Oh, yeah. From Chicago originally, south
You
side.
live here? Have you done the caucus here?
Oh, yeah. We're professionals.
You're professionals at the caucus.
I signed
You
up
keep
already.
keep that message.
We didn't touch on that, the colleges where they're
Yeah,
screwing up all
that's
the
right.
things. We
A
have
lot of
9
that comes from the
children, and all
Department of
them were-
Education, because the Department of Education puts that stranglehold as a condition for giving the money. If you shut that down,
I'm
then you
impressed
actually
that you
help a
never
lot of this.
stumbled, too.
Oh, I appreciate that, guys. Well, keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate your support, guys. Thank you. Take care. Hey,
Okay,
good to see you,
John,
man.
Derek.
John,
Good
good
to
to
see
see
you
you, man. Thank you.
Thank you for
being
coming
here.
back.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
They got me a new one.
I'll sign the. It's a black. Oh, it's a silver. You got it right. Yep.
Perfect.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that, and I'll put it on you. Inaugurate you. All right.
Perfect.
Convert. Counting on you. Take it easy, brother. Thank you. All right. You got a question? Quick question? Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. Got another couple minutes. Thank you. Thank you. Caroline, what's that? Okay. Thank you. Yep. Thank you. It's good to see you guys. A couple of these guys who want to volunteer, let's make sure we capture them, even the people coming from Wisconsin or whatever, and just do me a favor and tell the rest of the team, Schultz and Gavin and everybody else, like all the out-of-staters, even the other night that came to the Western event from like Nebraska. You go first, sir? Your local paper?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Welcome back.
It's good to be back. I like this place.
Last stretch here. So here in Dubuque, right? We kind of exist in a tri-state area with Illinois and Wisconsin across the way, the Mississippi River, and some pretty serious aged federal infrastructure, as a lifeblood, right? Like for our economy here.
Yep.
I guess I wonder, when you talk about pretty substantial cuts and
For the federal government? Yep.
reforming the federal government, what place does that kind of infrastructure and this kind of transit system add an interstate,
Yeah.
region? Where is that?
So I think that's actually going to help regions throughout the heartland of America. I grew up in Ohio. It's not so dissimilar from Iowa. But I have one core belief is that it is not the job of the federal government to provide employment opportunity to bureaucrats. And I think that once you actually eliminate that bureaucracy, a lot of the regulations that shackle a lot of businesses, even ones that have left the United States or gone to other places, creates more of an ability for them to come back to the United States. And so that's a big part of way deregulating the regulatory apparatus is going to do this. You can't do it without shutting down the actual employee base of the federal government. When you have a bunch of people reporting into work for that federal bureaucracy that should have never had that job in the first place, they quite literally start finding things to do. I think that's where a lot of these regulations come from. And so mass firings are a core part of my candidacy and a core part of the way I'm going to lead this country. I think that's actually going to revive the private sector lifeblood that a lot of the industrial base and a lot of the manufacturing base of this country is missing. And I think that will help places from my home state of Ohio to states right here like in Iowa and bring back an industrial base that we're missing. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Ramaswamy, after the third GOP debate, Nikki Haley said you have a woman problem. What would you say to Haley and voters who might share that same sentiment?
My statement to Nikki Haley is that she has a corruption problem. And I think that it is degrading and downright sexist to say that if you're criticizing somebody because they have a corruption issue, but they're using 2 X chromosomes to deflect that criticism, that's degrading to women, it's insulting, and it shows the Kamala Harris tendencies of this woman who's using identity politics as a way to deflect accountability. My response would be she had the gall to say Donald Trump needed to release his tax returns in 2016 when she staunchly opposed him, supporting Marco Rubio and Jeb Bush and whoever else she supported. She went on a high horse saying that he needed to release his tax returns. What goes around comes around. I call on Nikki Haley to release her tax returns this time around, abide by the same standards. And you know what? She should also release who are the clients of Allied Defense LLC, her family's military contracting firm, and having 2 X chromosomes does not immunize you from that level of criticism. I think it's insulting to women. I think it's insulting to Republicans. And I think it's insulting to Americans across this country that somebody will hide their own financial self-interest in what I believe is rank corruption, trying to use identity politics as a shield. There's another party that's expert at that. That's the Democratic Party. Frankly, she is the manifestation of that identitarian Democratic view in the Republican Party. And I think that she should come nowhere near not only the White House, but the levers of power in this country, because that's everything that's wrong with American politics, is that level of corruption and then using identity politics to shield away from it. I'm not going to fall for that.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback off that a little bit, you've obviously been very critical of Nikki Haley, as you just were. You've also been,
I've been critical of what she represents as well, because I think it's the Karl Rove, Dick Cheney, Lindsey Graham, old wing of the Republican Party that I think needs to be relegated to the dustbins of history. People who want to keep the foreign war machine humming, people who want to keep the surveillance state even more expansive than it's ever been. I don't care if you have an R or a D after your name. I think that that's a failure of the American people, and I think that the post-9/11 neoconservative surveillance state, Patriot Act vision, that should not be the Republican Party of the future. And so none of those people are going to come anywhere near my White House.
Right, sorry, just to be clear, you've
Yeah.
also been, we know how you feel about Donald Trump as well. You've spoken a lot about him. It's been speculated in many places about the possibility of Trump picking Haley as running mate potentially, and I'm wondering, if that would color your support of Trump if he did something like that.
Well, first of all, I expect to be the nominee, and I can tell you with clarity that the John Boltons and the Nikki Haleys of the world would never come near my administration, let alone in a vice president role. But I think that, should Donald Trump become the nominee, I've said that he would have my full support, but that's on the expectation that he wouldn't do something disastrous for this country, like making Nikki Haley his vice president. I would do everything in my power to oppose that from happening for this country. And the way I'm actually doing the right thing for the country now is running. But in that scenario, for whatever reason, if I'm not the nominee and Donald Trump is, I have said that he would have my absolute support. But that is assuming that it is still the same individual, Donald Trump, that's actually running on the platform and vision for this country. But if you're going to put a war hawk like Nikki Haley, who favors a surveillance state, fundamentally funded by some of the same people who are funding Trump to keep Trump off the ballot, that would shock me. It wouldn't make any sense, but that would mean that that wasn't even Donald Trump or an America First candidate doing that, and I would do everything in my power to oppose it. That's what I would say.
You've shifted how you talk about Trump a little bit. You've started bringing him up a little more unprompted. You've called him wounded and described the system.
Well, what the system has done, it's not a criticism. That's not a criticism of Trump. It's a criticism of a system that I've done everything to fight back against. I've said I would remove myself from the ballot from Maine to Colorado if they removed Donald Trump from that ballot, because that's the right thing to do. And pathetically, Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis and Chris Christie refused to do the same thing. That's how we should protect ourselves against election interference in this GOP primary. But at the end of the day, now we've got to have a responsibility to our country to open our eyes and see that this system has made a decision by hell or high water, the powers that be, that they're not going to let Donald Trump get anywhere near the White House. You go from the civil suits to then the prosecution at the state level, to then the first federal prosecution to the second federal prosecution, now extrajudicial means outside of the judicial system altogether to just remove him from the ballot. It's wrong, and I've pushed back on that more than anybody else has because it's the right thing to do. Heck, I've gone to file FOIA requests and take legal action against even the Biden administration, demanding the information of what Biden and Merrick Garland told Jack Smith. So I will stop at nothing, and for me it would be not the self-interested thing to do, but I've been as clear as I can be. But at this stage, as we're heading into 2024, we cannot walk into a trap where this system eliminates Donald Trump from contention and then trots Nikki Haley or some other puppet that they can control into the White House. That's not good for this country. And I'm in this race to the very end to make sure that we do the right thing for this country rather than to walk into that trap.
So I'm curious about you saying, talking about the trap. That's really what I'm asking about. I'm wondering if you bring up that idea or that image was prompted by anything in particular, other conversations with voters or
I think
in the news?
It's prompted by just the reality of what you see even happening in the last 30 days. 2 different states taking active steps to remove a presidential candidate from a ballot. This is unprecedented. It's dead wrong. It's unconstitutional. I'm against it, and I've been as vocal against that as I can be. But I never thought we would get to the day where you have individual Secretary of State waking up on a given day and just attempting to take a major presidential candidate off the ballot. That's not America. That's a bastardization of what this country was founded on. And I think at that point, when you look at what's come in the past 12 months before that, and you look at what happened in the recent past, from suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop on the eve of that last election to a man-made pandemic that we were told did not begin in a lab before it did, that's just the last several years. If we fail to learn those lessons and simply blithely go into a year assuming that it's going to be business as usual, I think we're going to be wrong. And I think the system has made clear that they have an anaphylactic response to this man. I think it is sad, and I've done everything I can to fight against it, and I will continue to push back against this corruption, and I think this unconstitutional behavior. But it's up to us, to our GOP primary base, and to our America First movement to say this movement cannot end with Donald Trump. And it is up to me. I believe you got the future of America First standing right here. It's my job to take this to the next level. And we cannot walk into what I do believe is a trap that the system is trying to lay. I was going to think it was initially Gavin Newsom or Michelle Obama they're going to trot out. I think it's increasingly clear that system is propping up Nikki Haley, from the mainstream media establishment to the donor establishment to the establishment within the Republican Party to, frankly, the establishment that's funded much of the Democratic Party, now stepping up to prop up a puppet they can control, advancing a pro-war agenda that keeps the foreign war machine humming while keeping the surveillance state even more active than it's ever been, even under a Democrat, tying social media accounts and internet accounts to government-issued ID. This is Orwellian, post-9/11 Patriot Act stuff. And so I refuse to stand by and just watch that happen in slow motion. And the first step to solving a problem is to name it. And that's what I've been doing.
You didn't quite answer the question from the voter about Biden's crime bill disproportionately affecting black and brown communities. So I want to ask again, where do you stand on releasing non-violent offenders? And then also on decriminalizing certain drugs for outside of...
Yeah, I'll give you a clear answer on both. So I think before we even have the conversation of any type of criminal release, we actually need to focus on making sure that we actually are putting behind bars the kind of people who need to be put behind bars responsible for violent crime. It's actually gone up across the cities. The next thing we need to do is bring back those mental health institutions. So I would say, Kendall, those are the top two priorities. We've got to get that right before we turn to what you could think of as any reevaluation of whether the people who are behind bars should be treated any more leniently than they already are for violent crimes. That's where I'm at on it. And that tells you a little bit of how I think as a leader. Yes, do I think our legal immigration system needs some reform? Of course it does. But I've said that we need to fix the illegal mass migration invasion crisis we have at our southern border fully and deport anybody who's in this country illegally before we look at those reforms then, which comes next. So I believe in working step by step. And the major problem we have right now as it comes to our law enforcement is at the local level. Local law enforcement is not able to do their job properly. We have a rise in violent crime. And the solution there is more cops on the streets who are able to do their jobs without fear of being sued and bringing back those psychiatric and mental health institutions, after which we can then take a long, hard look at what type of prison reform we do or don't need in a system that hasn't evenly been applied over the course of the last 30 years. The second question was...
And then you said earlier at the last event, I believe, and I'm paraphrasing, that you believe the left is in some ways holding our kids hostage over...
Yeah,
can you elaborate on...
Yeah, I do think that the left-wing opposition to hiring 3 armed security guards per school is unconscionable. We know that would have a dramatic reduction in the risk that something like what happened in Perry, Iowa ever happen again. 3 armed security guards per school would be an active deterrent to that happening. And I think it's unconscionable that we provide that kind of security at banks or at airports without actually using it to protect our most valuable national asset, which is our children, the next generation of Americans. And I think part of what's going on is there are certain elements, not painting a broad brush to say this everybody, but I think there are certain elements on the left who want to ultimately see the Second Amendment abolished. And to say that, you know what, our best chance of doing this is if there are enough school shootings that there may actually be an opportunity to finally use this to pass legislation in a way that otherwise isn't going to happen if you have 3 armed security guards in every school across this country. There was a family that came to that event that we did hold at Perry. Were you there? So it was striking to me that you have a mother talking about how there's 2% of the population, and yes, coming from the left, saying that it was the equivalent of a microaggression or made students feel a little bit unnerved to have armed guards or police officers in their schools. But to use that as a basis to say that the same people want gun control laws passed, I think that those two things are not unrelated. And so my view is that that's a shame that people who should be on the same side of an issue to protect our children can't get that basic measure passed. But I'm hopeful that I'll be able to lead this country so that we're able to revive those kinds of common sense solutions. For a tiny fraction of what we're spending on the Federal Department of Education, we absolutely can and should pay for 3 armed security guards in every school across this country. And I think that's what it means to actually protect our children. So thanks for the question.
About the left, are you talking, who talking about?
Well, I mean, left is a broad movement, just like talking about the right is a broad set of movement as well. But here narrowly, I'm talking about a movement in this country that is at once hostile to the Second Amendment, yet at the same time also opposed to putting 3 armed security guards in every school. So that's where I land.
Mr. Ramaswamy, when you say they will stop at nothing, and I mean nothing from keeping former President Trump off the ballot, what do you mean when you say, and I mean nothing?
The system has been far more imaginative than I've been. If you had asked me at the start of last year, 12 months ago, would they be using Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to remove Donald Trump without judicial process from the ballot, I would have said that was crazy. If you had told me there was federal prosecutions to try to prosecute a sitting president on legal theories that had never been used in contravention of case law from Alvarez to the Clinton sock drawer case, I would have said that would have been crazy. If you had told me that there was a New York level, state level prosecutor going after Donald Trump on an untested theory of illicit campaign contributions in an effort during a presidential election to try to disqualify or interfere with an election, I would have said that I would have never seen that coming. So what the last year has taught me is that this system, whatever tools they will use, go far beyond what a guy like me could predict. But heading into 2024, I think we now have to then have the humility to say the system has sent the signal that, I don't know if I have water, they will stop at nothing.